We're now ready to start creating our workbooks. As a practice exercise, let's help Sean create his expenses for the day. To begin with, we're going to need a new workbook. To do this, we're going to come up to the File tab on our ribbon and click. Come down on the green panel till you find New and click, and then select Blank Workbook. And again, it's a single click. We now have our blank workbook. Let's quickly zoom in so we can see what we're doing. I'm coming down to the zoom slider and just clicking the plus a few times. You will notice that the first cell, A1, has a green box around it. It is by default the active cell, and that means we can just start typing directly into it. So I'm going to type expenses, and now I could click away, but in Excel, it's better practice to press Tab to jump to the cell to the right, or press Enter to jump to the cell below. This commits the change and moves you down one cell. We're going to press Enter again to get one more down. Right, next thing we're going to type is Item, but now I want to go right, so press Tab, and it's gone one cell to the right where I'm going to type Cost, and press Enter. You'll notice it actually jumps down and back to the first empty cell in the next row. This makes your data entry very quick and easy. Right, Sean's first expense was his train ride. So we're going to type train and press Tab, and that costs $6.30. So I'm just going to put 6.3. We don't need to worry about putting extra decimal places or the dollar sign, as we'll look at how we can use formatting tools to do that easily in a later video. Now click Enter. All right, Sean also bought a coffee, so let's put a coffee in and press Tab, and that costs $3.50. And then lastly, he bought some lunch, and that cost $12. And Enter. He also bought a juice, but then he realizes actually he didn't buy that juice today. That was yesterday. So now he wants to delete that value from that cell. Deleting is easy. Select the cell or cells where you want to remove the data and press the Delete key on your keyboard. This will not remove the cell, just the contents of that cell. Please note, pressing Delete on your keyboard and using the Delete on your ribbon are quite different. The Delete on the ribbon actually removes the cell, and that may cause other data in your spreadsheet to move. So don't use that unless you actually want to remove the cell itself. Sean now realizes he actually has made a bit of a mistake. The train journey in cost him $6.30, but he's going to have to catch the train home again, so he wants to double this value. If you wish to replace the value in a cell, single click and overtype by putting in the new value. So we're going to put in $12.60 and press Enter. In the situation where you want to modify the contents of a cell, you have a few options. So I'd like train to actually say train ride. Start by clicking on the cell you want to change. Then you can either come up to the formula bar, click in the formula bar and type your change. Now I actually don't want to keep that, so here's a nice little trick. If you've started modifying a cell and you don't want to keep your changes, just press Escape. You don't need to press Undo because you haven't really committed the change until you press Enter. Now another way you can edit a cell is to double-click on it. You'll see my cursor is now blinking in the cell and I can type in my change. And again, click Enter. The keyboard shortcut for double-clicking is to press F2. And then again, if you don't want to make the change, press Escape. Next thing we need to do is type in a date. So I'm going to come up to cell B1 and I'm going to type in the current date, which is the 12th of the 4th, 2017. Now, it's really important when you type dates into Excel that you use the correct format for your regional settings. So in Australia, for example, we type day, followed by month, followed by year. If I was in the US, I would need to put month, then day, then year. Once you finish typing, click Enter, and you will notice that Excel's actually made my column wide enough to fit the date, which is really handy, but it doesn't do that for all your data. So if you decide you want to adjust your column widths, come up to the top where you have your column letters, find the little separating line to the right of the column you want to make wider, and then click and drag. It is a very bad idea to leave blank columns in the middle of your data set, so if you need to, rather just make your columns a little wider. Now, one last little thing to finish off our expenses. We need to total them up. So I'm going to click into B7, and here's a great trick. We're going to come up to our Home tab on our ribbon, and on the far right, you will see a tool called AutoSum. We'll look at working with calculations in a lot more detail next week, but if you just quickly need to add up some numbers, you can click on the AutoSum. You'll see it's added up all the numeric values above the cell where I originally clicked, and then just press Enter. So that's Sean's expenses complete. Why don't you now practice at creating your own expenses?
Sean is starting to feel a lot more confident about his Excel skills, and that's just as well because he's been given his first assignment. The boss has asked him to complete the help desk roster for the next 2 weeks. One of the tools that can help a lot with this is the fill handle. The fill handle is located at the bottom right-hand corner of a cell, and when you hover over it, you should get a small black cross. At its simplest, the fill handle allows us to quickly copy. Let's have a look. So I'm going to click and drag down to row 17 and release, and it has copied my data for me. The fill handle can do some slightly cleverer things though as well. So I'm going to click onto B4 where I've got my record number, and I actually want these to go R1001, R1002. Let's see what happens when I drag my fill handle. Now what has happened here is the fill handle has given us what's called a series. Where you have a combination of text and numbers, it automatically adds one to the numbers. Well, that is interesting. Let's see what happens with our dates. So I'm going to click on the 1st of the 5th. This time, however, instead of dragging, I'm going to try a shortcut. I'm going to double click my fill handle. So 2 quick clicks. How good was that? And again, we've got that series where it's adding 1 to each date, which is perfect. Let's see what happens with days of the week. So I've clicked on Monday. I'm again going to come to my fill handle, double click. Well, that is clever. And that will work with days of the week or months of the year. Now I've done each of those individually so that you can see how they work. But to show you how quick this could have been, I'm going to undo those last 3 changes. I'm going to select all 3 of these and then double click my fill handle. And you can see you don't even have to do them one at a time. Excellent. Now each of my help desk shifts is 8 hours. So really I just want to copy that number 8 down. Let's see what happens when we double click the fill handle. And there we go. So that's interesting. With dates, we get a series, but with numbers, we automatically get a copy. Now I need to number my shifts for the next 2 weeks, but I know that when I double click my 1, I'm just going to get a series of 1s. However, Excel does actually give you options. Whenever you use the fill handle, you should see a little icon come up at the bottom, and if you hover over it, you'll see it's called Autofill Options. I'm going to click on the drop-down arrow, and you'll see it has done a copy, but you do have the option to do a fill series. Well, that's brilliant. I'm going to click on that, And there you go. Now let's see what would happen with our options for our dates. So I'm going to come back to date here, double click, come and have a look at my options. And this time it has chosen fill series, but I could choose a copy. So if you need to do that, you have that with dates as well. Or you could do something quite fun. So I could do fill weekdays or fill months. But I'd like to get back to my fill series. So quite a rich selection of options. The fill handle also allows you to do simple patterns. So for example, my cumulative hours, total hours on the help desk, is going to go up in 8ths. If I just copy the 16, that's not going to work. But if I select both the 8 and the 16, so I tell Excel there's a pattern, and then double click, there we go, counting in 8ths. And Excel can do this for quite a range of fairly straightforward patterns. Let's look at a slightly more complex one. So I have my 5 help desk staff here. I'm going to select all of them and again double click, and it has copied the whole group down. Now, one really exciting feature that was added in 2013, so this will only be available to 2013 and 16 users, is something called Flash Fill, which is an even more sophisticated pattern matcher. If you have a look here, I have Rajes's address, which is made up of his first name, a dot, his surname, and then the company name. Now, if I come and copy that down, it just copies it. But if I come to my autofill options, you'll see there's an option to do flash fill. And when I click on that, it spots the pattern and automatically creates addresses for all my staff. Wasn't that quick? Have a go at using the fill handle yourself.